All right.
Right.
We will call the meeting to order, and I've been given a script. So I'll do my best to give you the script. Hello and welcome to the City of Gainesville. They say virtual, I'm going to say technologically enhanced GCRA Advisory Board meeting. It's 5:33 on Tuesday, June 16th, 2020. We have a few items on the agenda tonight. There's some special directions for this evening. We will have board member and public comment on agenda items only. There will be no general board member public comment. We would like to encourage everyone to keep their comments under 3 minutes for brevity. And with that, I'll go to roll call.
So Member Abraben sends his regrets that he's unable to attend because he's traveling. So he is absent. Member Atkins Tufts.
Here.
Member Blount. Member Bush also sends her regrets that she's unable to attend. Member Dixon.
Here.
Member Fox. Member Grundy Gomez.
Present.
Member Idy.
Here.
Member Merritt.
Here.
Member Mitchell. Member Nielsen.
Here.
Member Palmer.
Here.
Member Pollitt.
Present.
Member Seawright. And Member Turner Evans.
Present.
Okay.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Okay. Who is
We
that?
have a second.
Sorry. Oh, Member
Second.
Nielsen.
Seconded.
All right. So normally we would go all in favor, but do you have to do a roll call?
We do.
All
So,
right. So why don't you poll the roll?
okay. So Member Atkins Tufts.
Yes. Is that a?
Yep. You can see it. Say aye or nay.
Aye.
Member Dixon.
Aye.
Member Grundy Gomez.
Aye.
Member Idy.
Aye.
Member Merritt.
Aye.
Member Nielsen.
Aye.
Member Palmer.
Aye.
Member Pollitt. Chair Pollitt.
Aye.
And Turner Evans.
Aye.
And Member Blount has just joined us.
We good?
Aye.
All right. Next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from our last meeting. I don't know how many of you can remember back that far. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Second.
Second.
Is that Member
Palmer.
Grundy?
Palmer
Who did the
and
second?
Gomez.
Okay. And roll call. Member Atkins Tufts.
Aye.
Member Blount.
Aye.
Member Dixon.
Aye.
Member Grundy. Oh, you already voted. Sorry. Member Idy.
Aye.
Member Merritt.
Aye.
Member Nielsen.
Aye.
Chair Palmer. Or Chair Pollitt.
Aye.
And Turner Evans.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all. This was interesting and a little awkward, but we made it through.
We'll
The
get
first-
it down.
I know it'll work. We're all patient and wonderful people. And it's good to actually see everybody. That's one of the benefits of Zoom. We've been locked up and haven't seen people, and it's good to see everybody. The first item we have is request for qualifications for home builders for the Heartwood neighborhood. And I believe our project manager, Dan Gill, will present.
Hello, everyone. I will echo those, the chair's words. It is very nice to see everybody. And definitely feeling fortunate being able to work from home and keep, pushing forward with everything that's on staff's plate and, these strange times. And so We are excited to bring some good news, some light in these strange times. So a couple of updates. We are bringing the request for qualifications, the RFQ for the Heartwood Home Builders. The award recommendation, we're bringing that before you today. Reference number CRAX-20029-GD, New Home Builders for the Heartwood Home Neighborhood.
Hey, Dan.
Daniel, yep. Can you hear me?
Somebody's chewing, so it's hard to hear you. Whoever's chewing.
Okay.
Everyone should go on mute if they're not speaking, please.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Daniel, slide, please. So the request for qualifications for the Heartwood Home Builders was advertised on April 23rd, 2020. And this also began what is known as the Cone of Silence. This is a period where all communication referring to the RFQ goes through the city's procurement department. Gail is on the call with us today if there's any questions for her. During this period, no one is allowed to discuss the RFQ with anyone except the procurement staff. And this cone of silence lasts until the procurement department makes its award recommendation, which in this case was on June 9th. This RFQ was advertised on Demand Star, published in the Gainesville Sun, The Guardian, the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, and the Builders Association of North Central Florida. The RFQ reached a minimum of 81 companies, and of those 81 companies, 9 downloaded the RFQ and 3 responded with submittals. The submittals were all qualified through an evaluative process that involved a team of 3 City of Gainesville staff evaluators, 1 from the GCRA, 1 from housing, and the other from the planning department. All companies' financials were evaluated through the city's finance department, and references were checked and verified. Slide. So all 3 companies that submitted, Elevated Design and Construction, the Flanagan Companies Incorporated, and Cianci Construction, qualified and will be participating in the next phase of home construction in Heartwood. Elevated and Flanagan have their corporate offices in Gainesville, while Cianci has a satellite office in Gainesville with its corporate headquarters in Davie, Florida. Elevated Design is registered as a small or service-disabled veteran business in the city of Gainesville, as well as a minority business. And Cianci is self-declared as a small or service-disabled veteran business and is currently in the certification process with the city. The Flanagan Companies has worked with the city's housing department in the past as a pre-qualified builder in Gainesville. And so we are looking forward to working with these companies in the coming months to bring Heartwood to fruition. Next slide, please. And along,
should we wait for questions?
Yeah, if that's all right. So along with that piece of good news, we also have an update on our model home, and are excited to announce that the permit was issued on June 8th, 2020. And so this is a huge milestone. Everyone should be very excited. And, to be honest, we knew that getting this first permit out the door was going to be kind of complicated, but of course, throw in a dash of COVID-19, and well, it's been about 5 months actually to the day that we applied for this permit. There were many involved in the permitting process. We have, the architects, the truss engineers, AC, and while everyone was adjusting to working from home. So it's been a journey to say the least. The team, we have kept diligent track of the permitting records. So when the time comes to permit the remaining 33 homes, we should have a relatively smooth permitting process established. In the coming days, we will complete a press release and cover the groundbreaking of the model home virtually so the community can be part of this exciting time in the project. And we have received an updated construction schedule for the model home with an estimated completion date of early October 2020. And so next steps, we'll be taking the RFQ rankings to the July 16th City Commission meeting for final approval with any other recommendations the board may make today. And once the home builders are approved by the City Commission, staff will begin working with the realty team, Team Dynamo, construction manager Shear, and the home builders to finalize and finalizing the marketing and outreach for the home buyer intake and sales process for the remaining 33 homes. Next slide, Daniel, please. And so with that, in closing, we would like to make a mention of the fiscal note to the board that the home construction cost will be cost neutral for the city, and that the home builders will be compensated by the home buyers. And so this note was also stated in the RFQ. And so the recommendation is the GCRA Executive Director to the GCRA Advisory Board approve award for bid number CRAX-20029-GD, new home builders for the Heartwood neighborhood as presented. Thank you all very much for your patience for these these interesting times, and for listening. And we're here to answer any questions.
Okay, I turn this over for board questions. I see Mr. Gomez has his hand up. I'm just going to take them in order on my participant level here. So bear with me.
Mr. Chair, if I can go last, because I have a few questions. I'll go last.
Okay, then I'm going to go to Mr. Blount.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is the process for the model home. Will there be continuing RFQs as construction goes forward? Will there be opportunities that other companies can try to bid in, or this one will continue throughout all your construction?
So Tricia, can I go ahead and respond?
Please do.
Oh, okay. So, hey, Kali. So this RFQ was to qualify builders for the remaining 33 homes. The model home already has been approved and is ready to go, has a builder separate from these qualified builders. So we qualified 3 builders to build the remaining 33 homes out at Heartwood, which was is a huge, moving piece in this puzzle. Is that clear?
All right, Member Dixon.
Just wondered how how it works on the buyer side. Are they buying pre-construction, or are the builders building spec homes and then the buyers buy them, or is it some combination?
Great question.
I don't know if anybody had. So buyers will be they will be meeting with lenders and our realty team to discuss what models they will be choosing, what spec options they'll be choosing from, so they can then get pre-qualified. And then once that is decided upon, which model homes and specs, that will be bid to those qualified builders. Does that make sense, Linda?
I think so. So they are buying it pre-construction then.
Say that again?
They're buying it before the house gets built.
Correct.
Pre-construction.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Member Palmer.
Yeah, I wanted to, I guess, ask a little bit more about the financials of the home, just to, I understand some of our target is trying to make these things affordable. Do we have an idea of what our cost per square foot build targets are? Any general conditions that these contractors are going to charge, and what their average GC fee, or what their GC fee would be for doing these projects?
I'm sorry, Michael, can you please repeat that question?
Sure. I guess the long and short of it is, do we have a cost per square foot that we're trying to hit for construction?
We don't have a set price per square foot exactly. We will be taking these specs to our realtor to determine listing prices, and so the fees won't be negotiated until after the award is approved by the city commission. So we have to kind of wait on that.
Okay, so I guess could you clarify what was actually requested in the RFQ? Because one of the things I think should be pretty easy for most contractors is to say, here's the cost per, here's my build cost per square foot. Here's what we're going to charge, and here's what, here's what our general conditions are, and here's what my fee is per home. That's a pretty standard.
We were just looking for qualifications. We weren't asking for a price point. The floor plans were provided to them, and to see if they felt that they can if they can build these homes. And so they're going to have to bid each home and negotiate that price with the home buyer. But there is no, set price per square foot currently.
Okay, I guess I'm a little concerned that and maybe I might need a little bit more clarification on what incentives are going to be available, because it sounds like, I'm a little nervous that, even though we did qualify them, they may be, since we have such a small number of qualified builders, we may not have something that's going to be realistically affordable for people to build, or what are maybe just can we explain what mechanism is going to be there to make these affordable? Because I have a general idea of what spec homes are going for right now, or what build costs are going for. So,
right.
So if I were to add to that, it would be normally in a request for qualifications, you are qualifying a small set of bidders, if you will, out of a larger pool that meet the requirements that you have, so that you know that they are capable of doing the work. And then you would seek pricing between those 3 or so qualified bidders in order to get the best value. But you're asking us to pick the one person that's going to give you a price based on some qualifications that has no cost component to it.
Correct.
That
Mr. Chair,
doesn't seem right.
Mr. Chair, I pointed from information. It's not part of my question, but to get clarity on something, point of information.
Please proceed.
If Daniel or if Sarah could please clarify, are they asking us today to select one of these 3 builders? Because if so, Mr. Chair, to be completely fair to you, there needs to be some more background given. I'll wait till my time to do so. But can we get clarity on that, please?
Well, you're next in line. So if you want to ask the question, are you through asking questions, Mr. Palmer?
I
For the moment?
believe Sarah has a response.
Okay. Mr. Gomez, if you'll wait for Sarah, then you can have your question. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Thanks. I was trying to figure out how to speak. So I wanted to add a few things. The solicitation and the intent of the solicitation, as we discussed with the commission, was to try to spread the love, if you will, with some small local diverse contractors. Of course, when you do this type of solicitation, you just have to set the qualifications and get the word out as best you can to get people to participate. And so I think we're lucky with the 3 that we got. They seem like a good fit for the project. And what this bid is today is just approving the award to these 3 builders. So this is different because usually in construction, if you award a solicitation, the next thing would be a contract. But in this case, the contract will be between these builders and the eventual buyers, okay? And so where it gets a little bit confusing is because it's not like the award is just kind of setting the pool. And then when a buyer comes forward, and they have determined which model they want, they also have a few upgrade options. And so depending on what they pick, each of the 3 builders will have a chance to bid for that home. The buyer does not necessarily have to take the low bid, right? They may, I don't know, find one contractor to be more responsive or, have a desire to work with someone else, but that's their choice. And so the contract will actually be between the buyer and one of these 3 home builders. So I hope that clarifies things. And then I wanted to also mention the down payment assistance program. So there are 11 homes that are have down payment assistance available to them. And those will kind of go through a different track through the housing department with the city. And so that's the down payment assistance program. The homes will be valued the same depending on which model home they choose and what kind of finishes they choose. And then of course, you know, how much that costs, and then according to their income, they will get some kind of down payment assistance. And I think it varies. Dan Gill might be able to clarify, but it's kind of a formula that you use, and then they qualify for a certain amount of that down payment assistance. So those are the 11 official affordable homes, if that makes sense, and the rest.
I'm sorry. I'm having a little trouble
I'm
hearing.
having a hard time hearing you, Sarah.
I believe Chair Pollitt, I believe you have some stuff going on in the background. Sorry.
Okay, Sarah, so clarity. Can you hear me, Sarah?
I can.
So 11 homes are going to be offered that are going to be affordable, are going to be offered down payment assistance. Can you please give us through those, what venues or revenue streams those are going to be through?
Yeah, it's through the general fund. The money was set aside via the city commission. I'd have to go back and get the date for you. But those funds are set aside and earmarked for down payment assistance for Heartwood.
Okay, so
They're
Mr.
not
Chair.
included in our budget.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, I'm going to pose I'm going to have some questions, but get some feedback. So when we previously, just so for the edification of the board, what we did, and I think both Sarah, Dan, actually, you know what? No, the entire staff has done a very great job. Sarah, kudos to you and Dan Gill, working very, very hard on trying to get diversity when it comes to our builders and what have you. I think, and I know Dan is really focused hard on working on that. So I appreciate staff and all of you, really. Thank you so much for that. The other thing I want to say is this, and this would probably, Sarah, not be for you, but I do see the city manager and I see Mrs. Bowie is on. I want to direct this toward them in that I would probably want to encourage my colleagues in that I think Member Palmer touched on something that is very, very important, especially when it comes to affordability. We can do affordability, but in these revenue times, with what we just dealt with COVID-19, every dollar is going to be precious. So I think we need to probably think a little bit outside of the box. So I'm going to give you some feedback. I've offered it before, but it's something we could do. And I think, and I had a conversation for transparency with the city manager a little while ago, some time ago, a few months back, and regarding this project. And one thing that we probably could do, I understand that we got builders and things want to develop. It is not just us developing it and moving expeditiously, but we want a good quality project. And I think the way that we could do that is, one is it's always going to be about, especially with developers, the less overhead that they have to spend, the more profit they make, and it's going to be less impact to the buyer. And I think Member Palmer can always correct me if I'm wrong, those that are real estate folks and facility folks. Here's the thing, we as a city could buy all the building supplies wholesale, number one. And we can buy it at a discounted rate. We could do that. That makes construction costs go down. And I see Member Palmer shaking his head. If you do that, here's why you could do that. Number one, we get it at cost and below cost. So if we do that, we already drive down costs to construct. The other problem, it's not going to be just the down payment assistance folks are going to have here. The appraised value of homes around there, getting appraisal and getting approved for funding is going to be the mechanism. For an example, I'm a veteran. As a veteran, I can get an approval from the VA, but if the appraised value and they're not approving anything below over 138,000, most likely, for those of you that are realtors, know that I'm going to be hard pressed to get approved for that loan if the appraisal's not there. So here's the thing: how do we try to? Oh, Member Palmer, do you have something you want to chime in?
Yeah, I would like to touch on some of that stuff. So one thing to keep in mind, can you hear me?
Yeah.
One thing to keep in mind right now, the real estate market, we're seeing very, very low inventory. I mean, there's not a lot of people selling houses right now. There are still people buying. We're actually in one of, at least my experience has been pretty crazy with trying to find houses, especially around this section of town, that are new and in good condition. Everything that is new and in good, viable condition goes very fast. I've seen things, come on the market on a Thursday, and by Friday afternoon, they are under contract with multiple offers. I really think we're actually, it may take us getting a little bit more closer towards springtime, but I think we're in actually a very good position for a lot of these things to come up and start coming available. There is, so far my experience hasn't been seeing a lot of things run into issues with appraisal value. A lot of the appraisers in town are taking into consideration that people are willing to go ahead and pay. So, as long as these things aren't getting priced astronomical, or even comparative to some of the new construction in other parts of town, I think we would be in a really good position to get people into them.
Mike, the
Mhm.
one thing that I wanted to, especially we were wanting to do, is make this a 21st century community. I
Mhm.
think by slowing this down, I'm going to tell you why it's important to get this right. We want to get, this is going to be the first catalyst project of substance to get this right. We only have one opportunity to get it right. And number one is we've seen with the, whether it be the, gosh, I'm tongue twisted. I don't normally get tongue twisted. With the the authority over the homes. Gosh bless it. Why am I tongue twisted today? The
FHA,
overseer. Yes,
or is
thank you.
FHA, or
Yeah, no. The body that's going to oversee the property once the city pulls out. The governing body for the house. Thank you,
HOA?
somebody. Thank you, somebody. God,
Mm.
why can't I get HOA out today? The HOA, those prices were I think pretty costly. Dan, how much is the HOA fees going to be here?
We have currently, including the GRUCOM, we're looking at about 170, and I think that's in. And
That is correct.
David can speak to that.
Is that
That is
quarterly,
correct.
yearly, monthly?
That is monthly. If you discount the 68 and change for the GRUCOM, your actual monthly association fee is just over $100.
And what all does that, how far does that cover? Is that just kind of yard maintenance? Does that extend to
That
site
covers
maintenance, roof maintenance?
No. As you know, there's no clubhouse, there's no pool. So that
That's
covers the
CDD.
maintenance
That
of
would
the
be
common
CDD.
area. Excuse me?
That would be CDD if there was a clubhouse community.
Still covered under
I'm just
HOA,
saying.
Mr. Roque, keep explaining, please.
So this is going to cover all the maintenance, landscaping of the common areas, repairs, say on the pond, the maintenance of the pond, the maintenance of the wetland, and insurance liability, and so on. There's budgets for legal fees, and I mean the customary operational budget of an HOA on top of the regular maintenance services offered to the community. So that's what that fee is based on.
Thank you. Ms. Dixon, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of understand the real estate side, and again, how somebody gets into this development. I guess the city's realtor that they're using, that's, I assume, the listing agent, and then anyone else can bring a buyer, or how does somebody, if they want to find out about buying in this neighborhood, how do they go about that?
We have a I mean, we have a list of 800, about 1,000 plus now, Trisha, that have shown interest in the neighborhood, and that is the group of folks that we're going to be reaching out to when we get this, this next phase of Heartwood moving, and that together with the realtor, and kind of getting out our marketing campaign and getting the word out through social media. The Gainesville Sun, I mean, as many avenues as we can to really get the word out that we're going to start taking in applications. We're going to have a buyer information event where, and we're still figuring out, especially with COVID and moving forward, how we're going to do that, because we're in the beginning stages planning to do that as a public gathering. But, an information event where people can come and ask questions to see what kind of paperwork they need to have in order to, be pre-approved and even, to be considered for the neighborhood. And, that's going to be an event in itself. And then from that, we're going to have the actual home buyers, intake process that is also going to be, that's also in the works currently. I don't know. Does that make sense, Linda?
Yep, I'm here.
Other board comment?
Yes.
Okay,
I have my
Mr. Gomez.
hand up. I don't know if you can see.
I don't have your hand up, but please say something.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've been
all
sitting
good.
here with my hand up, but I can't.
Oh, you know what it is? I can't see everybody without scrolling up and down.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my.
No, Sarah, for some reason your hand isn't showing as up. But anyway, sorry.
You have an invisible hand.
Oh no, I had my literal hand up like this.
There you go.
Because I don't have the option to raise my hand, which is weird. I don't know if I need to update my Zoom version, but anyway, I'm sorry.
You're lucky we're a flexible board.
Yes, thank you so much for forgiving. I wanted to answer Linda's question directly. That you'll probably remember that we had a solicitation for a realtor last year, and the award was made. We had the protest, and then it was awarded again by the city commission, and it was right near the end of the fiscal year and the change. We were going from a CRA to a city department. So we are just now about to get them under contract. And so those are the next couple steps. Number one is once we get them under contract, we're going to finalize the pricing. We have some pricing from the contractor, but we're going to work with the realtor to find the right market price for these. And then that will solidify the last piece of information we need for our communications plan. So we also have another firm under contract to help with the communications plan and the website, and all that will launch simultaneously with instructions on how to move forward. So if you want to qualify for the affordable housing, you'll go one way. And then if you want to just buy a home there, you can also just go through the realtor, right? If you want the affordable or not. So, but he'll actually work with the housing department on that. And then any other brokers, we welcome participation. So that's in the contract that if they, share the sale listing and buyer's agent, that the fee is split then. So that's the way that piece worked. I just wanted to clarify. And
Okay.
then the home buyer event that Dan mentioned, obviously that would be a large group setting, and we were trying to kind of get the information out. So we're rethinking the strategy. It's interesting because I was actually contacted by a church in Southeast today who wants us to come speak to them about the opportunity. And so we might instead look for groups where we can hold online forums and really have question and answer sessions, and have a time period by which we can set up virtual meetings with interested churches and organizations to get the information out that way at a more grassroots level, along with the social media and everything else that Dan mentioned advertising wise. But Team Dynamo Keller Williams is the firm that was awarded the bid last year, and we'll have them under contract soon. So these are all imminent next steps.
So
Okay, I'm a little dense. I just wanted to ask a quick clarifying question. If I look at the recommendation, it says approve award for the bid for new home builders, plural. So that's all three of these. We're recommending to the commission that these three home builders are all viable to negotiate with any of the people that want to purchase a home. Is that correct?
And that's what the evaluation committee was tasked with determining in order to make that recommendation. And if Gail wants to add to that, she was our purchasing representative, and if she needs to speak to that, she can.
Well, Mr. Gomez has a question, so I want to get to him.
All right, so I had a question, Mr. Manager. If in your insight or on any of this, Is there anything else that any missed opportunities that we're leaving off the table that we could possibly add to this or that could enhance this, help lower costs, make this even more of a win-win for everybody?
So going back to your comment about the sales tax, the city would actually have to be the developer and then sell the lot secondary. But that's doable. There's a provision, I think, for the city to actually be the developer of lots that is contemplated. But I think the first go of it, as I understand it, and Sarah can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, is to really let Team Dynamo go out there and market the 33 lots, 34 lots, and then let an individual negotiate with one of these three builders for the ultimate price on there. So there is some competition between the three builders as to making sure that the price is the lowest so they can get the the business. So there will be, I think, 12 models, and every builder will have an opportunity to bid on that for the buyer. One of the concerns I think that was just talked about that is the carrying cost of the property once it's constructed. I do have some concerns on a mix between market rate and affordable that have the same monthly carrying cost on there. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out in the market, but we'll see. If I'm buying an affordable product and it's all income based, I've got to make sure that I have the capacity, not only after down payment assistance and perhaps I'm buying down, that I also have the ability to maintain the property, including paying the HOA fees. So I think that's an issue we're going to have to work through as we go through this process.
Mr. Chair, according to my calculation, it looks like HOA fees are going to be annually around $2,040 a year. And so I think that all is all inclusive. And I remember Seawright can correct me, but I remember when we were talking about this, that was a major concern that we had previously was going to be the cost of the HOA fees. Is that a fair one, Stephanie? Stephanie, we can't hear you. You're muted.
You're unmuted, but I still can't hear her.
Sorry.
That's a first, by the way. That's a first.
Good.
Can y'all hear me now, though?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So yes, I agree. Actually, when I think Daniel or Dave, I can't remember which one, I just logged on. When he said that the HOA fees were about $170 a month, I thought that was low based on what because I have really, and I still have it. I know we're past that now. I still have some issues with pretty much repeating what City Manager Feldman said. When you have two different types of home buyers, but everybody has to pay the same fees, I do have an issue with that. But as far as I'm concerned, we're past that. I think that has been done, unfortunately. I didn't agree with a lot of the fees, the homeowner association fees, at the amount that they were saying then. This 170 sounds different to me a month than from what? Because I remember arguing about like 2-something to 300, if I recall. So if it's down to 170 something now, that might still be a little high. But my issue wasn't so much having homeowners association fees. My issue has always been making people pay the cable or that utility thing. That was more of the big deal than the actual homeowner association cost.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Palmer's got his hand up.
I think Sarah had a response to Stephanie. I'm happy to let her go first.
All right.
Thanks so much. I did want to mention that David Roque did an analysis of fees, throughout different communities, and you have to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. But minus the GRUCOM, the fees are very low. You know, the GRUCOM does add what, $69, I think, you know, and so, you know, I have yet to see if that's going to be a problem. I will find out pretty quickly. However, even at 170, they were much lower than other communities with kind of a similar environment where most of the common area was, you know, a natural area where everyone can use it to participate in sports or whatever. But it was very comparable, which is surprising to me. I've never lived in, you know, a community with an HOA, but it's on par with other communities.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer.
Yeah, and I guess I'd like to corroborate that as well. That's something that I've seen. I've definitely seen a number of HOA communities that are charging well into the 200s. I mean, if you live in a condo community, they're charging $300 a month, sometimes up into $300 a month. I think the most important thing to me about the HOA would be the HOA fees would be the extent to which they cover possibly some exterior maintenance for people. If there was a way that some of those HOA fees could be leveraged into some sort of an insurance policy that covers, you know, say some siding repair for people, then I think we'd be able to get real value out of it, and it'd help maintain the community. But I guess my other question, as far as I understood, I believe we said there were 9 contractors that were qualified, but these were the 3 selected. I was hoping we could, or were these just the 3 that were there?
No, 9 download. Sorry, can I respond?
Yes.
9 downloaded the RFQ, 3 submitted.
Okay, and these 3 were the only ones that met the qualifications, or are we just kind of taking what we can get as far as contractors with these right now?
No, those are the only 3 that submitted, and they qualified. It's not, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Blount, you
Mr.
were
Chairman.
next. Yeah. Do you need to say something?
Am I
Yeah,
recognized?
just to clarify Dan's response, if I heard you correctly, 81 businesses looked at the RFQ. Am I correct in that assumption? If I recall, you mentioned something like that in the beginning. Of the 81, 9.
Yes.
I'm sorry, it went to 81 vendors, to 81 contractors.
So it reached a minimum of 81, and 9 of those 81 downloaded the actual document. And out of those 9 that downloaded, 3 submitted.
3 submitted their qualifications.
Responses to the RFQ, correct. And those 3 all qualified. It's not that we qualified 2 of the 3. All 3 of the ones that submitted qualified, and that's what we've presented to you today, and is what we want the board to approve.
Okay, would you mind hitting just a couple of the, sorry, just to continue on mine, I hope I'm not jumping on. Would you mind just hitting a couple of the like big items that were what, you know, what could be the things that disqualified other people, and what made these people continue through?
Oh, geez, off the top of my head. Gail, could you respond to that off the top of your head?
Well, you're speculating why people chose not to submit, right?
So
maybe not speculating why they chose to submit, but like what it is.
Not to submit, because all 3 that submitted were qualified.
Correct.
Misunderstanding.
Michael.
Yeah.
So there are only 3 vendors that actually put in a submittal for this bid. Out of everybody that we contacted, we only had 3 that we could evaluate, and those companies were evaluated based on certain criteria that were established before we even went out with the bid. So that there was a financial question, there was a years of experience question, there were have you built houses question, and the bottom line is we were just trying to get to, are you guys financially capable of building a house, at least one house? And we wanted to attract as many builders as we could. So there was, typically there's a bondable you need to have 300, be able to bond for 300,000, but you can build one house for less than 300,000. We were trying to attract those builders by saying, we will consider you to build one house at a time.
Mhm.
So we did try to include as many vendors as we possibly could. But the bottom line is that only 3 submitted proposals. Their financials and their capabilities and their history in home building was all evaluated by a team, and it was determined that all 3 of them could build a house. That's basically what we did, or what the team did. I just facilitated.
Hey, Mike,
Okay,
Michael.
Mr. Blount's had his hand up for a while. I'd like to kind of get his question on.
Thank you. 3 points, actually. I wonder if that HOA fee, you're describing specific components. So how can we consider if some of the components of the HOA fee can be opt-in or opt-out? Second, especially for the affordable units, it sounds like you're describing a process where we stand back and let the buyer move between those 3 qualified builders. But I would think that GCRA should be more active in the process, especially for those 11 affordable ones, to make sure the costs are as controlled as possible. And the third item, I know in housing authorities, we have a thing called Section 3, where we...
You blanked out.
Oh no, did we lose?
Can you still hear me?
There you go.
Section 3.
Yeah, we have a thing called Section 3, where we try to utilize residents wherever possible to do specific work. So I wonder if some of the work that is covered by the HOA fee can be offered to the affordable housing clients in the neighborhood. And we don't know that there's, that people are physically capable and what they can do, but that could be an option, another option for controlling HOA costs if we try to.
Cut out again.
No, I think he's finished.
Oh, okay. Mr. Gomez, you had your hand up.
Actually, I wanted to move the recommendation and have some other recommendations along with it, but I wanted to wait to see if there's anybody else.
Okay, Mr. Palmer, we might have cut you off somewhere in this conversation. I apologize for that, but I wanted to get everybody out on the table. Do you have anything else?
I think I've got what makes me feel comfortable with a lot of this. I think we're pretty good. I think we're in a pretty good situation. I hope that we can hit some pretty aggressive, maybe not aggressive, but I hope to see that we hit fairly marketable prices on these homes once they're built. But yeah, I guess the only outside concern that I have about this is that I think one of the worst things we could have is if somebody picks a builder and then some issue shows up and that builder can't complete or drags their feet or isn't able to actually finish the process. I think that's probably the only real concern I have. But unfortunately, without already having experience with those builders, we kind of don't really know what's going to happen. So I guess we kind of have to, hold our nose and take the plunge. But
I think, Mike, if we gave the city manager some more latitude or their office to be able to meander and navigate through those kinds of things, it might help. But maybe I add that as a form of emotion.
Well, okay. Do you want to make a motion?
Yes.
Or not? Okay,
Yes, I do.
What is it?
I want to move that we move the recommendation of these 3 builders, as well as that we look at exploring on addressing having a possible sliding scale with respect to the homeowners association fees, with respect to the 11 units that are being constructed on a sliding scale for the homeowners association fees, or some type of model to be able to address that the city manager or staff can bring back to us.
Second.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. I'm going to ask just a brief clarifying question. So what you're saying is approve the three builders, motion to approve the three builders, but that we would ask the commission to look at a way of creating a more affordable, a scaled affordable package for the HOA fees.
Correct.
Okay.
Or some type of model that that staff or the city manager could construct for that.
Okay, I was just wanting to get it straight in my head. Sarah, you had your hand up, your virtual hand up.
Gosh. Okay, yeah, I found it. It was hidden. I was like, I don't understand. I've seen the hand before, but it was behind you guys, your pictures. So there was something that Mike Palmer brought up before that I was actually going to try to clarify. And then once we moved into a different motion, it totally slipped my mind. So I apologize.
I'm just glad to know your hand works.
But my hand works. So
Okay.
thank you. Sorry about that.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? I'm going to ask Tricia, should we be asking for public comment?
We do not have any written or anybody raising their hands, so it doesn't
Okay.
look like we have any public
We have no
comment.
public comment.
I
So-
actually have a comment. Is it possible for, actually, I want to make sure it's as asking staff, is this reasonable, Ms. Bowie or Mr. Manager, for staff to be able to come back to us with some type of model on that link? Is that within the purview of you all to be able to do that?
Let's see. Sarah here.
I mean, we're a recommending body, so they can do what they want, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, not necessarily, but I'll let Sarah come.
Well, I'm feeling strong then.
Okay, there we go. I raised my hand. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I see your hand too.
Okay, thank you. You guys are cracking me up. So two things. A lot of it is governed by the homeowners association documents, and we have outside legal counsel that guide us through a lot of the decision making. And so with this one, I believe that some of this, the methodology behind the homeowners association fees is included in the homeowners association documents. And so I think what we'll have to do is involve our outside legal counsel prior to moving it forward with the city commission, because our internal legal group is unable to represent that piece. But that being said, any recommendation that you want us to bring forward, we will do.
I just want to make sure. That it's Sarah, that it's delivered to the commission and to whoever it needs to be, that it's understood that for those 11, at least those 11 sites that are going to be constructed on, that we have some, because I think the manager expressed some concern and some members here expressed some concern, that we attempt as best we can to address it. If you can't, we get it. But if we can have the ability, let's do that.
Yeah.
So I'm Mr. Grundy. So I'm going to add, just to clarify, the motion was to approve the three builders, and we're asking the commission to recognize that there may be an opportunity for assistance with HOA fees, and if they can do something about it, great.
No, clarity. I would like there to be a model in place to have for those 11 home sites, a more affordable or sliding scale or some type of model to address it. That's what I'm recommending to the commission.
Are you willing to split this motion and recommendation and approve?
If it be the will of the body, that's fine. That's up to the seconder, though.
Mr. Feldman, you had your hand up?
I did. So I just want to clarify something for a second. So the HOA is a separate corporate entity.
Good point.
That is apart from the GCRA, apart from the city, and is not under the control or direction of the city commission. So you certainly can request the HOA to consider a different model, and I think Sarah said that they will take that recommendation back to HOA, but I don't think the city commission has direct jurisdiction over them.
So, Mr. Manager, based on that, and colleague, can you hear me? Based on that, what I am willing to ask that's in our purview is if we can ask or work with GRU or Mr. Bolarski on mitigating some of the cost of the $69 or some of that cost where what is in our purview to mitigate what goes toward that. We already increased it $69. So however we can model that, that's what I'm going to ask us to do with it, what's in our purview to mitigate some costs as best we can.
That you can do.
So may I alter my motion if Mr. Blount will be understanding?
Hang on just a second. Ms. Seawright has her hand up, and she might have a relevant comment.
Yes, sir. You're
Ms.
muted,
Seawright.
Stephanie. She's muted. Stephanie, hello. There you go.
I got it. It's two different mute buttons, computer and the phone. So this really may or may not have any relevance to the actual motion at hand, but I was curious because I do recall who the members of the HOA were, who was managing the HOA before I left, and I know most of them don't work there anymore. So who is the managing HOA of the subdivision?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Sarah here. It's the same. It's still GCRA team members. So on the call tonight, myself and David Roque are both seated on that board. So we can't discuss really this item at this time. However, it would be, I know it's complicated, but it would be us just having a meeting to discuss a potential way to offset the HOA costs on those 11 homes. And I think if I can foresee where you're going with this, Ms. Stephanie, perhaps as the developer and the controlling HOA board members, we might be able to come up with another structure to offset the HOA costs on those 11 homes.
Thank you, Stephanie. That's exactly where I was going.
Mm-hmm. And so that is what we would be taking back to our outside attorneys to discuss how that might be accomplished and if there's other precedents for that.
Okay, Mr. Gomez, you wanted to consider changing your motion.
Well, I want to make sure Mr. Blount is amenable to.
I understand.
So
I'm listening, and it was GRUCOM that made me think about opt-in, opt-out. Please go ahead, Armando.
So I want to give a lot of latitude here. So whatever was in the purview of the GCRA within the funding structure to make a reduction and make it more affordable, that we should do that with it's in our purview since the homeowners association. So I would like to amend my previous motion to scratch homeowners association and make it any and all funding structures that are within our purview that we can amend, whether that be GRUCOM or any other funding structure that we could reduce or make more affordable to do that instead of the homeowners association fee.
Okay, Tricia, did you get that?
Yes, and we're also being recorded, so I'm going to have to listen to it again.
Mr. Blount,
I'm sorry. I know mine are always complicated, but hey.
Seconder agrees.
Okay.
There we go.
We have a motion and a second. Does anybody have any need to clarify it? I got Mr. Feldman with his hand still up, Mr. Palmer with a hand up, and Sarah with a hand up. If you don't want your hand up, take it down. Mr. Palmer.
One last clarifying. Is there a mechanism in place if, say, one of these buyers, because I think this kind of still goes back to what my worst case scenario I think would be, is there a mechanism in place for if especially one of the lower income buyers on one of the 11 homes picks a contractor and for whatever reason that contractor goes insolvent and can't complete this home, is there a mechanism we already have planned to send that over to one of the other more successful contractors?
Sarah, do you want to answer that or?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Can you hear me? Okay. So we will have a right to construct contract with each one of those builders, and then any terms and conditions that we want to add that are specific to performance, we do have on the agenda to discuss with our city attorney's office and figure out, you know, how to have that kind of performance written into their agreement with the city. And then likewise, there'll probably have to be some kind of mirrored language in the contract between the home builder and the home buyer as well. So that's on our radar.
Okay, great.
And that's actually what I was going to say to your question earlier that slipped my mind. So I'm glad it came back again.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's important. That makes me feel, I mean, me personally, that makes me feel a lot more comfortable with moving forward. So.
Yeah, and then one more thing on the GRU piece, I believe that might need to be, and Mr. Feldman can clarify, a separate recommendation that would ask for the city commission to consider reducing the cost for those 11 homes or something like that. And I don't want to, you know, give you the motion, but I believe that would need to come as a separate motion to the city commission for the GRU piece.
I didn't hear it was just GRU. I heard it was anything within our purview.
Yes, but I don't know if you need a separate recommendation just for the GRU piece, because staff going directly to GRU, they gave us what they considered their best offer for the GroupCom for all of the homes. It was their lowest rate. We spent a lot of time negotiating beforehand, but then speaking through that rate with the commission. Some of you were probably there and remember that meeting. So as staff, I feel like we don't have a lot of flexibility in negotiating directly with GRU, but if the commission desired to go that route, they would need to consider that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Okay, so if you all are comfortable, I'm happy to divide the motion, but I can supply something that might be more palatable for staff. And it might be, I still want to keep any of your purview, but I'm happy to make it more palatable. But we could probably also ask Mr. Bolarski to come talk to us, or is somebody from GroupCom, so we can actually maybe have that discussion and flesh that out more, because I really know that we could, if we dug deeper, we probably can get a little bit more if we asked. We probably could. Maybe staff can, but we could probably say, hey, let's negotiate some more. Let's talk about this. But I'm happy if you all are okay with it. If we want to divide it up, I'm happy to do whatever makes staff comfortable.
I've got a motion and a second that combines the two. Sarah, if you're saying that we are not allowed to go forward with that motion, we can ask Mr. Gomez to make another motion.
I would defer to Mr. Feldman on that.
We're a recommending body. I don't know why it matters personally, but.
Yeah, I think it could all be part of one.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, then I'll leave it on.
And I think that covers the spirit of what Mr. Gomez and the seconder thought. You know, we should do everything we can to help reduce HOA fees.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, this is David.
Yes.
And if I may, and if I'm out of order, please do tell me so. But I will tell you that this conversation that we have had in the past half hour, an hour, would not have taken place if the GroupCom fee had not been built into the HOA fees. The HOA fees are in fact $105. And no one can really argue with that amount. And Member Palmer alluded to that, and even Member Seawright alluded to that, because they were thinking $200–300 on association fees alone. Now, that said, any home that we have today, yours included, you pay an average between 60 and 80, depending on the speed for your internet connection. And so I'm trying to see the pros and the cons. And on top of that, now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but now that it's built into into the HOA fee for that homeowner, and I don't pay an HOA fee, but my understanding is that this is a tax deductible at the end of the year. So now your GRUCOM or your cable bill becomes tax deductible on top of that. And so I'm just plain sort of devil's advocate because, and again, most importantly, this conversation would not be about the HOA had the city commission not even brought to the table the GRUCOM issue. And many of you, I'm sure, are aware of this. So I just want to put that on the table for your consideration, because regardless, people are going to pay for whether it's GRUCOM or Cox or AT&T, whoever, they're going to pay for internet fee. Bottom line.
I think this board recognizes the work that's gone into creating a good HOA fee, which looks like it's very market oriented. But what I'm hearing is that the board also understands that an HOA fee on top of a mortgage payment can be a stretch for some families. And we're asking as part of this motion that the city do all that it can within its powers to reduce the HOA fee. It didn't give a limit. It didn't say you had to hit this or that. It just said, if there's any more you can get, try and get it. I don't want to put words in the motioner's mouth. So Mr. Gomez, if I spoke improperly,
No,
say so.
I think, Mr. Chair, that's dead on. And Mr. Okay, this is not a reflection or aspersion at anybody at staff or anything. If anything, we're just hearing the concerns out of the city manager, some other members of the body, and we're just simply saying we recognize in these times at right now, people are hurting, and we just want to be
I
cognizant.
agree with you, and my intent was not to argue against your motion or otherwise, by no means.
Okay.
So I want to clarify. I'm just stating sort of a background.
And I appreciate that.
It's good to have. Thank you. Mr. Blunt, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. And the households who are low income, very low income, or extremely low income are likely to have written exempt on their W-4 at their employment. So, you know, a tax benefit is going to be irrelevant if they're not taxable anyway.
Okay, I'm going to thank you all. I'm going to call the motion back. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Do we need a roll call? Trish?
Yes.
Can we repeat the motion?
You would.
Do you want to read it out, Tricia, or do you want me to try it?
Trisha's gone.
I will repeat it as I understood it. We are approving the GCRA Executive Director to Advisory Board to approve award for the bids CRA X 20000029-GD new home builders for Heartwood neighborhood as presented, with the desire that the city do all that it can to help assist in reducing HOA fees for home buyers.
Mm-hmm.
Did I get that right, Mr. Gomez?
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
Colin.
Do I have somebody record a vote?
Mr. Chair, you might want to just call each person's name.
I don't have a list of everybody.
You want some help?
Why don't you call a list of persons' names? Well, I'm looking for one of the staff members who has a list to call it.
Hey, I was on mute on this this device.
Or you
Okay.
just have everybody raise their hand.
I'm sorry. So I have a motion.
All I do is look for hands, guys. I don't call names.
Okay. So I have a motion from Member Grundy, a second from Member Blount, and we'll do a roll call vote. Member Atkins Tufts.
Aye.
Member Dixon.
Aye.
Member Fox. Member Fox has joined us. Member Eide.
Aye.
Member Merritt.
Aye.
Member Nielsen.
Aye.
Member Palmer.
Aye.
Chair Paulette,
Aye.
and Member Seawright,
Aye.
and Member Turner Evans.
Aye.
And you didn't ask for mine.
I didn't ask for yours. You were because you made the motion.
Oh, okay. Well, aye, anyway.
Okay. Okay. So it looks like everyone's in favor.
The next item we have on the agenda is 200021
Oh,
GNV
well,
CARES update.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I do have one more question about the 11 affordable homes. Looking into the future, when one of these 11 is sold or inherited, how will it, for what period of years and by what method will we keep it affordable? Will there be some codicil in the contract to make sure it remains affordably priced through conveyances of sale or inheritance? That's my question. Could you hear me?
I did. I don't know the answer.
My understanding is that that's going to be written into the contract. There's going to be some language in the contract that's going to keep that affordable. But those are things that we need to discuss with the housing department.
So, Colleen, this is Sarah. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, if you remember, this was a market rate neighborhood. I don't remember the date where it kind of shifted towards making some options affordable. Before, we had an old program called Model Block where we would give incentive for living there for 10 years. That program was sunset, and when affordability came into the agenda for this project, the way it was set up was through the housing department's down payment assistance program. So unfortunately, there's no mechanism in place now for perpetual affordability, which was discussed at the time when that funding was approved for this project. So I think that I wanted to answer your question directly.
Well, that's something that should be addressed. There should be a codicil in the contract to maintain affordable pricing for somewhere 30 to 50 years, if not perpetually.
Okay, noted.
I'd like to argue the other side of that, or just to note the other side of that. I think if you force affordability, you're actually taking profits out of the person who got the affordability's pocket. Just as a counterpoint. I don't know what the solution is, but the person who got the affordable housing would no longer would lose out on potential market rate revenue or an appreciation of value if they are forced to sell it at a lower price or something like that down the road.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to the next item. GNV CARES update. Dan Hoffman.
Thank you very much. Good to see everybody again. It might be virtual. I'm going to give you a brief update on the GNV CARES for Business program, and then happy to answer any questions you might have about it. The City Commission, in response to the pandemic, wanted to put forward a stimulus program for businesses that were affected by the pandemic, specifically those that were shut down or halted through some type of action, emergency order action of the city, county, or state, one of the emergency orders. It's a $5,000 program, grant program, so it does not have to be paid back for use of things like rent, utilities, payroll, benefits. It's funded through three sources: the CDBG, the GCRA, and the general fund. The breakout for those, it's a total of $1.5 million, and the breakout was $500,000 for general fund. I believe it was $830 from GCRA and 200, I'm forgetting the exact amount, 200 and change from the CDBG. We identified, and the city commission actually approved 9 criteria. So in terms of targeting the businesses, we identified 9 criteria. For a business to qualify, they had to meet all 9. There wasn't a, well, I meet the 1, so I qualify. They have to meet all 9 threshold criteria. And then there was an application period, and we also have a contractor that's been working with us for the business program and the neighbors program to help process the applications and issue payments. I'm going to talk quickly about the criteria themselves. First off, all the businesses have to be located within the CRA as of within the city of Gainesville as of March 16th, 2020. Only CRA money could be spent within the CRA boundary. And then, of course, only CDBG money could be spent within that boundary. So we did have some geographic limitations as to where the money could be spent. General fund dollars could be spent anywhere in the city. They have to have a loss in revenue due to public health restrictions, and I'll come back to that one in a moment because it's important. A maximum of 50 employees. That one's a little more straightforward. So if you're 1 to 50, then you qualify. If you're 51, then you do not qualify, and that is well within any typical small business definition. In fact, most definitions of small businesses are 250 or less. Their operations have to be halted or curtailed by an emergency order. I'm going to come back to that one as well in a moment. They have to have a current business tax receipt from the city of Gainesville, so they have to be up to date on their business tax with the city. That's not an optional tax. The business cannot have received the PPP program, that's the Payroll Protection Program, it's a federal program, or the SBA disaster assistance in response to the coronavirus funds. This was in order to ensure that business weren't quote unquote double dipping from multiple sources. It was also a CDBG requirement if we were going to fund through that source. The business cannot have any pending petition for bankruptcy. It was important to the commission that these businesses be viable businesses that are receiving this, so they can't have already been going into bankruptcy before the pandemic started. They have to have some good faith efforts to provide pay or benefits to furloughed employees and retention of employees. We wanted to make sure that this was going to not just keep the business afloat, but also the employees of those businesses. And local ownership. No chains. In fact, we have, as I'll point out in a moment, the list of businesses that applied and then the ones that at least have made through pre-verification are being processed for potential payment. It's actually, I think in looking at the list, although it's not quite as long as I would have liked, it's the type of businesses that I think we intended to affect through the program. I'm going to hop back real quick to 2 of those criteria because it gets to why we disqualified a number of the businesses. First off, a loss in revenue due to public health restrictions. We looked at a lot of different jurisdictions that were doing a program similar to this. Some said that you had to have a reduction of 25% revenue or a reduction of 50% revenue. That just wasn't, the commission didn't have an appetite for being that specific, plus the ability we wanted this to be quick, we wanted to get money out the door, we didn't want to have them produce a significant amount of paperwork, especially these really small businesses that might not have the most sophisticated bookkeeping systems. So we just said loss in revenue due to public health restrictions. So it could be any amount of loss. And we were very flexible in the documentation we would accept to show that. So then with that in mind, what would we use to try to focus on the businesses that were hit the hardest by our attempts to mitigate the effect of the virus? And that was operations halted or curtailed by emergency orders. That means in the course of this, of the pandemic, there are emergency orders that said your business must shut down or your business can only operate in this very limited manner. Good example are barbershops and hair salons. They were one of the first to be closed, and they only recently have started to reopen, and even then on a limited basis. And they had no way to mitigate their business losses. You can't do curbside haircuts. So it was, we wanted to make sure that we got the businesses that through our actions of government, in order to protect public health, were most impacted. So we had some businesses that did not qualify because their business was never, they might have lost some revenue during the time, but they were never shut down. They were never, there was no action of the city, county, or state that said, you cannot do business during this time. In fact, in some cases, they probably did a little bit more business. I know the city hired a lot of additional cleaning services during this time. So we got 266 applications. We did what I would say a very significant amount of outreach. And I know often, of course we hit our traditional channels, social media, email lists, and various things. And I know, oftentimes sometimes that's where we stop, but we actually went door to door and submitted flyers on how to apply for this. And I think we hit the vast majority of businesses across the city, including a list that was provided to us by the housing department for anybody in the the LMA zones, the low moderate income zones. So if you were a business in any of those zones, we went door to door and we did everything we could within reason to try to get the word out. And then after we utilize the 211 system as well to help answer questions, screen, and make sure folks were ready to apply when the time came. Now, if we had had more applications than we had funding for, it would have gone into a randomization process. We didn't want those businesses that were really good at filling out forms to automatically go to the front of the line and have a greater likelihood of being funded. Turns out we didn't have to deal with that. So we will be able to fund every eligible business that applied for it. So we got 266. Now of this, we did cut, there were two main reasons why we might have disqualified a business. Right off the top, 60 did not qualify because they didn't have that current business tax receipt. That was an interesting lesson learned. Obviously the city doesn't do things like this. No city really does a program like this. These are all new things, and I'll come back to one of our lessons learned about that in a moment. It's the business tax receipt for the city of Gainesville. Considering that it's city funds that are paying for this, we felt it was important for them to be a registered, active business with the city. The other primary reason why somebody would be disqualified is that they weren't an eligible business type. A construction company, an accountant, those were businesses that were not, they weren't in that operations halted criteria. So we did have a number of businesses that were disqualified because they weren't an eligible business type. We did have a handful that were outside of the city, but not a tremendous amount. And then so after all the applications were received, we went through. We did have 54 that were within a CDBG CRA area, 149 that are within the outside of that. So any eligible business off that list will be paid through general fund. We did make the decision because of the additional restrictions and administrative burden of a CDBG, of paying this through CDBG, and because we got fewer applications within those zones, then we have more money than businesses, in essence. We decided to fund them only through CRA. So the team decided at some point to say, let's return CDBG money back to CDBG in case more was needed for other CDBG programs, and just fund these through CRA so we didn't have the same types of restrictions. There was another 4 or 5 disqualifying criteria that were specific to CDBG that I didn't talk about here, but those were only for CDBG. So we have pre-screened everyone. I think notifications of award are going out to businesses. I think the first might have actually gone out today. In fact, they will get processed through our finance department, and folks should start receiving the money very soon. We will spend, based on the numbers, we will spend every penny of our general fund money Like I said, we're returning CDBG money back to that pot. And there will be additional, of what was allocated to us out of GCRA, there will be about $600,000 remaining roughly. And it's because we will have already expended every bit of our general fund money. It's not likely, and it's probably not advisable that we just do another round in the exact same manner. And that gets to the lessons learned. The review team, which consists of a representative of our, and this is when I say review team, I mean the team that looked at all the applications, make sure that there wasn't anything, first off, of course, inappropriate happening, and that we were hitting the types of businesses that met the intent of the city commission. So we had someone from the EO office on the review team. We had somebody from the housing department on the review team. The planning, are now called our Department of Sustainable Development, was on the review team because that was the group that was in charge of enforcing the emergency order, and they had the most hands-on knowledge of who was shut down during the pandemic. From our economic development team, and then of course your very own Sarah Vidal-Finn, representing the CRA, was also on the review panel. One of the lessons that we kind of gathered from this was that if there was going to be some kind of second phase program to help positively affect businesses within the CRA, because that's the only money remaining and currently is CRA money, that it would be a good opportunity. We've identified basically a pool of businesses, a lot of the ones that were either smaller or ineligible because of their business type that were never really on our radar before, or they, more specifically, the ones that were not current on their business tax receipt with the city. These are businesses that are typically, 1, 2 folks. They're not really engaged with a lot of the programs and opportunities that whether it's CRA or other city departments might have available to them. So we saw actually the next phase of this would be really an opportune time to take the lessons learned, this recent positive contact we've had with these businesses, and try to engage with them a little bit more and understand what really do they need. Maybe it is just funds, or maybe it is some technical assistance. Maybe it is something related to retrofitting their business to help them survive, potentially another phase of the pandemic. The team has had some really good creative conversations about what that might look like. Sarah has had some really excellent ideas about how to engage those businesses and make sure that they're really participating in all the programs the city has to offer. So with that's the update, and happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Seawright has her hand up.
Yes, Dan, you made a comment with regards to some of the money that you all were using that came from CDBG, that you're returning back to the CDBG pot. And I do realize that a lot of that money, you all took money from a lot of the nonprofits who had already received CDBG funding. So now that it's back in the pot, will you be reissuing it back out to those agencies where you all removed the money from?
I don't have the answer to that one. We went through the process of there's a federal kind of a process that the commission has to go through to reallocate CDBG money. It would be up to the commission if they're gonna. We basically said we don't need it for this program, and then from there it's up to city manager, or I think the commission would have to take action in order to reallocate it back.
So let me just jump in here.
Oh.
So there were really 2 pots of CDBG money. One was under the Federal CARES Act that was passed by Congress in March. We got of $806,000, which was not programmed at all. And then we reprogrammed roughly $854,000 of CDBG dollars for the other part of the program, which was GNV Cares for Neighbors, which provided assistance for extremely low, very low, and moderate income households for utility and either rent or mortgage payments on there. So I think bottom line is we're going to have CDBG dollars that are not going to be used as part of GNV Cares for either business or neighbors, and that money will need to be reprogrammed. The reason why we took some of the money from nonprofits in there was that looking at the requirements for a spend within the required timelines of HUD, we did not believe that based upon where these not-for-profits were, that they were going to be able to make the spend in the required time. So we consulted with each of them and they confirmed that. At least that's my understanding. But the idea is to get back to normal on our CDBG, and so those not-for-profits that are our partners should be in line to get those dollars back.
Mr. Atkins-Tufts?
Yeah, couple questions. Also, I'm on my cell phone, so if I get cut out, my battery might be dying. It says it's gonna die in like 30 minutes, just a heads up. I was wondering, in looking at this, so I have a small business that was really badly impacted. We have a gym. And when I saw the GNV Cares Act piece, that it was limited with PPP, people that took out PPP and EIDL funds. I was wondering, in looking at these, I was really surprised to see there's like 203 businesses locally that didn't receive PPP and EIDL funds. I mean, I don't know if you guys want to speak to that, like why these businesses didn't go for those government funds, because especially with the EIDL, I mean, there's like a $10,000 grant that you instantly got if you just filled out the form online.
We have a lot of anecdotal evidence. We went door to door with so many of these businesses. In the final weeks before the program went live, a lot of businesses got PPP. I think the reason why some of them didn't do it is just they were a little leery of possibly the federal process. Also, for a lot of the folks, the PPP was a loan, or there was a potential they might have to pay it back, and this was just a straight grant. We did have a few businesses that said, hey, I'm not going to apply for PPP because I would prefer just to have your $5,000 grant. So we heard that anecdotally from some businesses.
Okay, cool. I was just shocked that there's so many people, because the PPP gets forgiven, and then EIDL, $5,000 grant. I mean, you have 5 employees. Yeah, but yeah.
Any other comments? I'm understanding there's no requirement for any kind of action from the board. I know I have a personal objection to using CRA money that usually goes towards infrastructural type projects, capital enhancement, housing projects, neighborhood revitalization, streetscape revitalization, those type of things for other programs that probably the city ought to be able to fund on its own. But that's a personal opinion, and since there's no requirement for a motion or anything tonight, I just wanted to express that. I see Mr. Blount has his hand up.
Thank you. I understand under the GNV Cares for House.
Cut out.
Cut out, Mr. Blount.
I still can't hear you.
Recipients been notified at this point?
I only got the first word and the last word of that question. You cut out, Mr. Blount. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm on my neighbor's internet from across the street. So,
go sit on their porch.
have all the recipients been notified in both?
It cut out again. I'll answer it, at least the part I heard. Everyone has been notified of receipt, and we have been actively answering questions. I don't know about the neighbor's side of the house, but I know they've already started processing some awards. So people are getting notified as they've been screened or verified.
And I don't see any other hands up. Any other questions?
No, I'd just like to second, just to go on record, even though no one's asking, that we're using GCRA funds for something that the federal government could easily fund, with some assistance and helping people fill out online paperwork. But, no one's asking, so.
Okay, well, you don't have to be asked here. It's your chance to comment. I see someone from the city manager's office, Jenner. Can't read the rest of the name. Who's with their hand up?
Hi, it's Deborah.
Hey, Deborah. You gotta sign in with your name.
Yes, I have to always sign in and change it. I just wanted to speak to the neighbors side because remember we did the GNV Cares for Neighbors, which is different from the GNV Cares for Business. And the neighbors piece, a lot more restrictive because we are dealing with CDBG funding. And in fact, we've already had our first batch of those payments to go out. And that money doesn't go directly to the neighbor, but it does go to GRU to pay for the utility, and it goes to mortgage and or rent assistance. So like the business side, we had a great number of people who weren't qualified because of residency. And then just the very difficult task of going through about 522 applications that had missing documents. We've greatly reduced that. Our staff is working with each one of these applicants to get them approved and to get the relief out to them quickly. So we started with a little more than 1,000, which was under what we anticipated. And so we're not going to expend the entire bucket as well. There'll be some dollars for sure remaining. I can't remember who asked the question earlier, but about the nonprofits, I'll just add to what the managers already said. Our staff reached out to all of the nonprofits that could not use that funding before deciding to reprogram those funds for later, to be drawn down later by those nonprofits.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Tricia, any public comment?
There is no public comment.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is the review of the budget, I believe. Let me see, GCRA FY 2020 modifications and FY 2021 budget. I believe Ms. Vidal-Finn is going to explain this.
Yes. Good evening again. Thank you for hanging with us through this. I did want to just publicly thank especially Tricia Lopez and David Roque for getting this technologically enhanced, right? That's the phrase. Meeting together, because it was quite an ordeal. And I also want to thank the clerk's office for their support in helping us get this done, and each of you who participated in the practice meetings as well. So I think it's gone really well. I also wanted to note that not only did the team do a good job with this, but during COVID, in the past, I think we've been home working remotely 12 weeks. We also sold our office and moved into the new space virtually. So a lot has been happening, and the team has really done a great job in helping support this move, but also, working remotely. And it's funny that we're now in week 13 and I still couldn't find my hand raising button. So, I'm on these meetings all day. So our apologies, but thanks for sticking with us. And I just wanted to give the team a shout out because they've just done a great job during this time. So I'll go ahead and kick off this budget item. Today, as a follow-up to the GCRA plan adoption, Daniel Blumberg is actually going to review the changes to the FY20 budget, both the old funds referred to as TIF, just for anyone on the call, I don't know, tax increment financing is TIF, what we refer to as TIF. I know we use a lot of acronyms, so I wanted to make note of that. And that's the financing that was received when we were a statutory CRA. And then the new funding, 620, which is for the single district. So remember that until that TIF is fully paid out, we're carefully tracking and prioritizing its use, moving forward within those district restrictions. The majority of the FY20 modifications are a result of the decisions made with the plan approval to sunset some efforts, pay off the CRA's debt, and support local businesses within the district through Gainesville Cares.
Hey, Sarah, are we supposed to be looking at something, or are you supposed to be sharing something?
No, and actually, after I stop, then Daniel Blumberg will come up and he will share his screen with the backup.
Thank you. I apologize.
Giving a little bit of context before and after. So Daniel's also going to cover the FY21 proposed appropriations in light of those changes and the funding necessary in order to move each initiative in the new plan forward. So that's under our reinvestment roadmap, if you remember that part of the plan. So lastly, one thing I wanted to note is that if you've been through a budget process with us before, prior to our transition to a city department, the CRA handled all the budget presentations on a different schedule than the city process. So now that we're a city department, budget will come before you for review and approval, and then included with the entire city budget as a component unit within the overall city budget. So I wanted to just make note of that because that's a little bit different than how we operated in prior fiscal years. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Daniel Bloomberg to review the backup documentation provided with the agenda item, and then we'll come back to you. I'll come back to you afterwards with just a few closing comments. Thank you.
So good evening, everybody. I'm Daniel Bloomberg, Project Manager, Gainesville CRA, and this is a high-level overview of the GCRA FY20 budget modifications and the FY21 proposed budget. As a reminder, the GCRA annual budget has been set by interlocal agreement between the City of Gainesville and Alachua County. FY20 combined revenue of just over $7.5 million and FY21 revenue of just over $7.4 million. We have, per the GCRA 10-year reinvestment plan, 3 objectives or categories of initiatives, being economic development, community enhancements, and housing. Public space and streetscape is the third. So I'm going to mainly focus on the proposed modifications to the tax increment funding for FY20 and the FY21 proposed budget in this presentation. If you have specific questions, please make note of them, and you'll have time to ask the questions after the presentation. So let's scroll this down just a little bit. Oops, too far. Sorry, I have this blown up to make sure you guys can see it on the screen. So we're at the economic development investments. The first item here is going to be the 8th Avenue and Waldo Road improvements. This is a priority project across the community, and the board and leadership are moving it forward as soon as possible in conjunction with Wild Spaces, Public Places, and other departments like Mobility and Public Works, plus FDOT. The next steps involve forming a working group to identify each entity's role in moving it forward. The Cornerstone Campus was a tax increment fund. There was $56,652.07 of old TIF funds went towards paying off East Side's debt. The downtown master plan is TIF funded, and this is to provide professional services funding in FY20 for consultants with an RFQ that is currently on the street, which means we're under the cone of silence, so we can't really answer questions about that at this time until that is completed. GTech management is our next one. The FY20 funds include the GCRA office build-out, and the FY21 funds are for continued improvements at the GTech building. University Avenue and Waldo Road Mixed-Use Development and Job Training Center. This is to enable initial funding for the research and planning. Similar to 8th and Waldo, this will be a joint effort with other city departments. Power District redevelopment. The TIF funds were at just over $2.5 million, and $521,000 in change is being transferred to pay off the downtown redevelopment area's courthouse parking facility debt, leaving just over $1.9 million. We've reduced the FY20 budget to 0 from $400,000, and the FY20 is also at 0 allocated. Leadership asked for a solicitation to have a real estate broker on continuing contract who will manage this project moving forward. That solicitation is on the street, and again, for this, we are in the cone of silence. Former Fire Station number 1 redevelopment, funding to apply to either the preparation for the sale of or renovation of the building. This is another item that's on the street, and we are in the cone of silence for this as well. The former RTS site redevelopments. We are at its initial sites, inventory, analysis and planning, due diligence, market analysis, and appraisals. Innovation District originally had $436,721.89 of old TIF funds. Of this, that amount is to be transferred to pay off the CPUH debt. One pending development agreement for a concept company's project on north end of 9th Street. So that's it for the Innovation District area. Economic Development Finance Programs was originally budgeted for FY 20 at $607,000, $607,300. $600,000 of that was transferred to go towards GNV Cares. FY21 is budgeted back to $600,000. The GCRA would like to bring a discussion forward once decisions are made about whether or not there's a phase 2 of GNV Cares and general small business needs post-COVID. The economic development program's Eastside TIF is going to have a reduction of just over $28,000 of the economic development's Eastside TIF to zero to pay towards the Eastside District redevelopment notes. Under the economic development program's downtown TIF, the TIF funds were reduced by $150,000, which were transferred to our new fund 620 to pay for the downtown master plan. And then that reduced the TIF down to just over $699,000 remaining there. Economic development programs College Park and Urban Heights, the TIF funds, we're using $45,000 of that to pay down the CPUH debt. GNV Cares, make sure I'm still on my screen here with you guys, because I'm scrolling through two different screens. I'm going to pull this one up towards the top. GNV Cares, this was established with funds from the Economic Development Finance Programs in conjunction with Midtown Policing, account, and CPUH. Economic Development Programs, Fifth Avenue Pleasant Streets, this was a tax increment fund. We're using that balance of funds that was there to pay towards the FAPS and UDAG debt, leaving a $0 balance in the TIF funds for this. So we're now going to move to the community enhancements, and I got to make sure I stay on this one page. Community enhancements and housing initiatives. So we've already talked about Heartwood neighborhood. We have the model home construction underway and the contractor's bid approved this month. Greater Duval neighborhood improvements. Funding is for the needs assessment reports, planning, designing, engineering, wayfinding, signage, lighting, landscaping, pedestrian facilities, and construction. The Eastside Food Mobility Hub, this is to enable funding for the research and implementation. Model block and attainable housing strategies, this was talked about somewhat earlier. This topic will be brought to the board next month to discuss conceptual work completed on the two properties in Porters and Pleasant Street. We look forward to gathering your ideas for making and impacting the affordable housing market with these properties. Porters neighborhood improvements. The funding is to go towards the needs assessment, report, planning, designing, engineering, wayfinding, signage, lighting, landscaping, pedestrian facilities, and construction. Historic Heritage Trail, additional funding of $150,000 was allocated for FY20. The project is working on engineering, permitting, construction, management with FY21 budgeted of $795,000. Midtown Policing, this was old TIF funds of $200,000. This has been zeroed out as the funds were transferred to GNV Cares. District-wide landscape maintenance is annual maintenance for the GCRA landscape property assets. Get to the next page. Residential improvement program, revised paint program that will be brought up to the board for review. No funding is allocated for FY20 with anticipated $72,000 for FY21. And the commercial facade grant program, hopefully to be renamed the building improvement grant program. The revised facade grant program that will be brought to the board for review. Again, no funding allocated for FY20 and an anticipated amount for FY21. The facade and paint program revisions are under legal and staff review and will come back to the board for input at a future meeting. The property acquisitions and options. This is for new funding for opportunity analysis, appraisals, real estate, and broker engagements. College Park Community Policing Pilot. This was the TIF funding that had been set aside for this effort, and recurring funding for the pilot was set up in the new funding for 620. Both have been reduced to zero. So again, there's no funding for this line item any longer. Community partnership grants. The GCRA has provided funds for community partnership grants before. This is to allocate funds to do so going forward. We realized the need for an annual application process around these funds and clarification on how the board would like to manage these requisitions. The GCRA staff will return with proposed program recommendations per the board conversation. So our last major category here is the public space and streetscape initiatives. For the next 6 of these on this list, their corridor improvement working groups will be formed with partner departments and agencies to begin moving each effort forward. Each of these are in initial stages and is being established with funding for needs assessment, planning, and analysis. So those are the Waldo Road and Williston Road corridor improvements, University Avenue corridor, 13th Street corridor, Southwest Hawthorne Road corridor, Southwest 2nd and 4th Avenue corridors. The following 2 projects have repairs and/or modifications prior to transitioning to public works for long-term maintenance. Northwest 1st Avenue, work remains to be done to repair electrical outlets, and CPUH Primary Corridor South Main Street, funding for maintenance work and roundabout improvements. The following project is receiving funding from GCRA for the portion of the project that will align with the Heritage Trail head being at Aquin Jones. This is the Wild Spaces Public Places Strategic Partnership, is being used towards Aquin Jones. This is for funding additional work done there, and the contractor has been chosen, and work is beginning this month. So I have the revision that you got has this bright yellow section in here, so I wanted to just real quickly hit on this. The numbers were here before, but the text wasn't. So the total projects budgeted for FY20 is just over $5.5 million, and FY21 is just over $6.5 million. There is a transfer to ERAB of $6,400 in FY20. This was for a shortfall from FY19's budget. FY21, there's a transfer to FAPS for a development agreement of $180,000 and change. And FY21, there's a transfer to the DRAB, again, for a couple of development agreements for $236,000 and change. The total planned expenditure for FY20 is just over $5.5 million, and FY21 is just over $6.9 million. The anticipated ending fund balance before debt payoffs for FY20 is just over 1.9 million, and FY21 is just over 2.4 million. The total, I'm going to scroll down a little bit more. So you can see here underneath this, we've got the funds necessary to pay off GCRA debt. Notes these 2 funds are already represented in the above information. So we've got the 4 different amounts for each of the previous districts. The total of that's just over $1.4 million. And there was an additional funding of just over $66,000 from FY20's budget to balance that out and pay off the debt. So I'd like to thank you for your attention to all this detail. I know it's a lot looking at the spreadsheet. At this point, I've taken you through the backup material and turned the presentation back over to Sarah for closing comments, after which we will be available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. I did want to thank Daniel and the budget and finance staff. We had a few weeks to get this together, and it's due actually to budget and finance on the 22nd. So this was the meeting prior to take this to you all and kind of give you an update on the budget, since last we revisited was during the plan consolidation process. So any recommendations that are made today will be included in the presentation to the City Commission on July 16th. So I just wanted to remind you about that date. And then again, thank you for your attention tonight. The recommendation is provided in your agenda, and our team is here with any questions that you may have. So thanks again.
Thank you, staff. Ms. Seawright, you have your hand up.
Yes, I just needed a quick clarification. When you were talking on the line item that talked about the economic development funding that was for FAP, 5th Avenue, Pleasant Street. Yeah. And you made the comment that you used it to, you all took it and used it to pay the debt. But you said you paid off the FAP Pleasant Street, and then you said UDAG. What is UDAG? I wasn't sure what that was.
Urban Development Action Grant.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
UDAG is one of the debts that we had. We've been paying that for a number of years. I don't remember what that acronym stands for offhand. I can hunt that down for you and get that to you. But it is a debt that has been on the books for a number of years that we've been paying down, but we had not completed paying it off as of yet.
But yeah, just send that to me. I wasn't familiar, and I might have just forgotten. I just wasn't familiar with that.
I believe it was used for the streetscape. Just to add a point of clarification.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Blount?
Yes. On the item for the Heritage Trail, I'm just very attentive to that because of the nightmare that happened with that last year. What in the Heritage Trail, what is there upon which to spend so many hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Mr. Chair, Sarah here.
Yes.
So we have appropriated money. We've received some direction to go out and to get a consultant who has done historic heritage trails before. And that direction also included a piece for reverse consulting. So we'll be doing a solicitation to find a consultant to help lead that project forward, to take a look at all the work that's been done to date, and to carry out reverse consulting within their contract to work with members of the community to help us bring that to construction. So we'll be back to the board with that solicitation.
To have further comment, because of what happened in the past, being a consultant from not just out of the state, but from another country, who city legal had to turn back from co-opting the intellectual property of community residents. I want to see us be really, really careful about that. There is so much expertise in this community that has been here a long time. Patricia Nunn, people in Matheson, people in both historic boards, city and county. There is so much expertise and interest here that I'm afraid of seeing any more boondoggle spending about that project since such a scandalous thing happened in the past. So I hope that you will bring back to us who you're dealing with and where they're coming from, and if you can't find it locally, why not? Thank you.
Real quickly to follow up on Mr. Blount's comment, just to be clear, approving this budget just approves the amount of money in the budget. It does not approve the project, and you will bring each of these projects back to the board for approval. Is that correct, Ms. Vidal? I see you nodding.
That is correct. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to nod for communication, but can't help it.
I just wanted to make sure. Mr. Palmer.
Yes, sir.
I guess I just wanted to ask about, honestly, staffing for this and how we're going to be able to, I understand a lot of the budget is going towards probably some consulting, and it looks like there's a good bit of projects that are in plan. I just wanted to see, or I guess I just wanted to ask, do we have enough people in the CRA to be able to pull this off?
Okay, Sarah here. So we do have vacant positions right now. We have 4 vacant positions that we will be posting. We were in the process of posting pre-COVID and kind of took a break to see how that was going to play out and how we were going to, move those positions forward. So we will be moving those forward. So there are certain projects where we've been asked, specifically to do a solicitation for an outside consultant, but the majority of the work that needs to be done on these new initiatives, and some are not so new, right? So is really to bring the working group together and to identify what piece the CRA moves forward in conjunction with other departments like mobility and the Public Works Department and GRU. And so that phase and a lot of this money on some of the newer initiatives is to really start moving forward the planning phase, right, in each of these, and how each area of the city will contribute. 8th and Waldo is a good example where there's a a big amount of wild spaces, public places funding, and that is a very high priority project. So for instance, that's one where we are going to start meeting immediately with the other departments who are involved in that to get our game plan together and really identify what funding is available and how to best move those programs forward. You know, and in my mind, 8th and Waldo is almost like a program with many projects, you know, within it. So that's one as an example. Another example I'll share is that we know during our community outreach and in our discussions with the commission that affordable housing remains a huge priority. We know that we're not going to make a huge dent with Heartwood, but we have 2 other opportunities in Pleasant Street and Porters that we've done planning work on. We'll be bringing that item to your next meeting next month to give you an update on what work has been done so far conceptually, and then to talk about affordable housing when it comes to those 2 areas, and to find out kind of what are your goals, you know, for moving that forward with affordability. What are we seeing in the marketplace today? Some really great ideas, and to have really a brainstorming session to get your feedback on how you'd like us to kind of affect the housing market within those 2 neighborhoods. So that's how you'll start seeing some of these items come back to you, is, you know, to come back to really clarify and get our strategy together, let you know the working groups who will be working with us on these projects and any additional funding. And, you know, then we'll start bringing back next steps as deliverables come through. If that makes sense.
Thank you. Ms. Seawright, you have your hand up again? Just take it down.
No, I took it down. Sorry about that.
Okay, Ms. Dixon then.
Okay, I've got a number of questions. On the downtown master plan, what is the selection schedule?
I will have to get back to you on that. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, but it's posted now, I understand.
Posted, I believe proposals are due July 10th.
Okay.
Yeah, it's posted until the middle of July, and then it will take about 2 to 3 weeks for the evaluators to make recommendations.
Okay. My other question, the GTech management, I assume that's recurring. Is that correct?
I believe the GTech management includes the build out of the new space, if that's correct. And then we are working to get a consultant under contract to take a look at the building and potentially repositioning it post mortgage being paid off in December. To try to work with the commission to identify what are their priorities for that building moving forward. What are the opportunities there? We know it's currently set up a certain way based on certain companies we were trying to attract, you know, 20 years ago when we applied for that funding opportunity. And so there's some money in there to start getting that piece under contract, as well as some recommended upgrades to the building. Some are more immediate, you know, ADA related type improvements, but some will be more long-term and based on the future direction of the facility, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, so it's not recurring then. That sounds like it's specific task oriented.
Yes.
Another question, the University and Waldo Job Training Center, is there a site for that?
No, not specifically. So that is one that came through as kind of a big idea, you know, with the planning. And so part of what we're doing right now is going through the project charter phase, where we're identifying kind of where these requests came from, you know, what was the desire of the community, the commission, the board, and in order to suss out, you know, what role does the CRA play in conjunction with our other partners, and, you know, the strategy for moving it forward. So there's some money set aside for that to start that work. And as we said before, we'll bring it back to you as it gets fleshed out.
Okay, just a couple more, bear with me, please. The Waldo Road and 8th Avenue, I think a comment was made in the presentation that there's some DOT involvement in that project. Is that something specific? Do you have commitments of any kind from them?
We do not have any commitments at this time. And which project were we referring to? I missed it.
The Waldo Road, 8th Avenue. I thought when in the presentation when they were mentioning the various partners, I thought DOT was one that was mentioned. But
Yes.
that just, you're hoping?
Yes.
Okay.
We know they have to be part of the conversation.
Right. Okay. Just, I guess one other, well, two more things real quick. I was looking at the corridor improvements, and you know, I can see the strategy of spending a little bit money on, you know, 5 corridors to try to nail down what we might be able to do there. I'm just wondering though, if you know, ultimately, would we have enough money to do all 5 of those, or are we better off to hone in on 1 or 2 priorities and try to, you know, spend more money in fewer places and get some real results, as opposed to studying all 5? I can see the value of studying them, but I'm just not sure where that takes us in the long run.
Yeah, I think needs assessment is kind of a starting place that we used. But I think prior to that, there's a lot of conversations that need to be had on what is actually feasible within these areas. And so I'd imagine that before we actually let contracts on a few of these corridor improvements, that we would come back with more specific recommendations for how to move them forward and if they're feasible.
Would you anticipate hiring 1 consultant to do a study of all 5 corridors, or 5 different consultants?
We haven't gotten there yet. Yep, that'll be a procurement decision that will need to be made.
Okay, and my last one is just a comment, something I keep saying every time. You know, I still would like to see some kind of documentation of the evaluation criteria, kind of, you know, back to that selection criteria. So what, you know, what is it that makes these particular projects bubble up? And I think that will just help us with transparency and, you know, future decisions and being consistent.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. Any other questions from the board? Tricia, are there any public comment?
There are no public comments.
Anybody want to put forth a motion to for this budget?
Yeah, I'll put forth a motion to adopt this budget as is. I think it represents a pretty good start, and I think it's a good target. Looks like we've got a lot of things that we want to hit, so I'd like to put forth a motion to approve this budget.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second.
Tricia, did you get Mr. Palmer's motion and Ms. Seawright as a second?
I do. So
All right.
we will do a roll call vote.
Well, I'm going to ask for any further discussion from the board. Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote.
Okay. Member Atkins Tufts. Member Blount.
Aye.
Member Dixon.
Aye.
Member Fox. Member Grundy Gomez. Member Idy.
Aye.
Member Merritt.
Aye.
Member Nielsen.
Aye.
Member Pollitt.
Aye.
And Member Turner Evans.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, so we have nine in favor.
All right. I'm assuming that makes our quorum pass. Thank you all. That was the last item on our agenda, and we don't have any comment. I guess I would ask if there's a question from anybody on the board, but not comment. I don't hear any. So
Yes.
you're sure? Oh, I can't see my raised hands here. I'm looking at the agenda.
It's members Dixon and Blount have their hands up.
All right. Well, Dixon's up first. Blount second. Ms. Dixon.
Oh, her hand is down.
Mr. Blount.
I want to find out if is GCRA currently the decision maker for the A. Quinn Jones Museum?
Mr.
I didn't
Blount.
see it on our budget, staff.
Yeah, this is Sarah. We don't. So that position reports through Cultural Affairs, Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs, and has for quite some time. We worked to, actually Stephanie helped work to set up the position description for that, and during the turnover of the project of the home and the museum to Parks and Cultural Affairs, they actually hired the director or the position, you know, that through Parks, Rec, and Cultural Affairs, not us. So it all transitioned over there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I would like to thank staff for all of their work to make this possible, and I would like to thank all of the members for their patience as I fumbled through this. I see our next meeting is July 21st. Is that still accurate?
That's correct.
All right. And we have a motion to adjourn. Without objection, we're adjourned then.